Hi, and welcome back to School of Print Design, a show where we teach you how to design print like a pro. I'm Ariel from SmartPress, and this is part 2 of a designer's guide to choosing paper stocks for printing. In part 1, we covered everything you need to know about paper types and paper weight. In this episode, we'll dive deep on paper finish, paper color, and texture, and how they apply to your print designs. After you've honed in on the type and weight of paper you'll need for your project, you'll need to consider the paper finish, color, and texture. Let's get started by looking at paper finish. Now we've got this cool pop art inspired photo print to illustrate the differences between them. Now the typical finishes you'll see in printing are gloss, semi-gloss, matte, and uncoated. First, take a look at this print on gloss paper. Now gloss paper has a shiny coating that helps protect the paper and gives it an extra smooth surface. This coating also creates a seal that keeps the ink from fully absorbing into the paper. When the ink sits on top of the paper like this, the print will be sharper with more vibrant colors and higher contrast. See how bright the colors are in this print compared to the other finishes? And notice how there's high contrast with dark darks and light lights in the print? That's why you'll often see photography photo books and magazines printed on gloss paper. But unfortunately, the shiny gloss finish is also super reflective. That means that if you're hanging your print on a wall, you could also get a lot of glare. Also, gloss coating shows more fingerprints, more than any other finish. Now, this should be something you consider for prints that will be heavily handled, like business cards, mailers, or brochures. Those fingerprints can cheapen the impression of your print piece. So for these reasons, we don't use gloss papers for our SmartPress marketing collateral too often. Next, we've got semi-gloss. You might also hear semi-gloss papers called satin, silk, pearl, or luster. Looking at our prints again, you'll see that semi-gloss is right between gloss and matte. It has more color contrast and saturation than matte, but not as much as gloss. It's durable like gloss, but it still shows fingerprints too. And it has a sheen, but it's not quite as reflective as gloss. Overall, semi-gloss is a good middle ground. And pro tip, at SmartPress, we carry a semi-gloss paper that is coated on one side and uncoated on the other. We use this stock to create designs that have a coated exterior and uncoated interior like brochures or book covers. Let's take a look at our prints again. Now, here's matte. Matte has a flatter appearance than the gloss and semi-gloss papers. Slightly less contrast, less color saturation, but many artists and designers like this aesthetic. It comes down to the style or feeling you want to convey. You'll also see matte isn't as shiny as gloss and semi-gloss. Its low sheen reduces glare, and this makes it a great choice for any prints that will end up on a wall. And like gloss and semi-gloss, matte is also a coated paper, so it's durable. And the low sheen helps minimize fingerprints, which makes a matte finish great for prints that are handled heavily, like brochures or mailers. Last, we got uncoated paper. Now, unlike the other 3 finishes we've looked at, this one doesn't have any coating. This means the ink will really absorb into the paper, giving the print a softer, muted appearance. You can see that there's much less contrast and saturation here. However, many designers still prefer uncoated stocks because they have a more organic and elegant feel. Also, when there's no coating, there's zero glare. Displaying an uncoated print anywhere is simple. And for prints that are handled, uncoated stocks won't show any fingerprints or smudges. But just keep in mind that over time, they can absorb oil and moisture from repeated handling. Now that can eventually stain the print, so uncoated might not have the best longevity compared to coated stocks. However, most prints for business isn't intended for long-term use. So we use uncoated stocks in our marketing collateral all the time here at SmartPress. Now that you understand more about paper finish, let's move on to the next critical aspect of paper selection, paper color. You can find paper that's manufactured in almost any color you can dream of. Right now, you might be visualizing a rainbow of colored paper swatches, but the reality is that most of the time, you'll be designing with more standard paper colors like white, natural, and craft. So, how can we think about paper color decisions in a way that applies to our daily design work? I'm glad you asked. The answer is white point. A paper's white point simply refers to the color of the paper itself. but specifically how it correlates to the artwork being printed on it. Now, you'll most often hear white point used to compare nuances in warm or cool color temperatures of different white paper stocks, but we can think about it more broadly. Now let's take a look at this print from Seraphin. Since a standard print doesn't include white ink, we only get CMYK, right? Yeah. The white in your digital artwork becomes the paper color in your print. Notice here on the Seraphin logo is actually just the paper itself, without any ink printed on it. That paper white is the foundation that all the other colors are printed on it, and it will be the brightest part of your image. The brighter white our paper is, the higher our printable color gamut will be, and the greater dynamic range we'll get in our image. See how this looks on gloss white paper? We get these deep shadow areas and nice bright highlights in our eyes and over the exposed seat cushions. Now, when the white on paper changes, that shift will alter the color of the entire print. Now, if we look at this print on a much warmer white point, like a natural stock, you'll see how the woman's skin color shifts to a warmer tone. Well, that's because the white in our image has taken on the color of the paper. This can be an intentional stylistic decision to choose a paper color that enhances the subject matter, like warming skin tones. In theory, photographers would always want the brightest white paper to achieve the greatest dynamic range. But beware of bright white papers since they skew to cool tones and often heavily use optical brightening agents, or OBAs, that can contribute to a phenomenon called metamerism. Whoa, okay, what does that mean? It sounds complicated. Well, it is. But in essence, metamerism in printing means two printed colors can match in one type of lighting condition, but not in others, like daylight versus fluorescent. Okay, but why should we care? Well, in design, color accuracy and consistency matter, especially when it comes to brand work. And the majority of brands define their brand colors for print using the Pantone color matching system. For example, Smart Press Blue is 285C. Now let's take a look at this event poster. The peach color in this design is specified as Pantone 474C. First, when it comes to evaluating a brand color in print, we know that lighting conditions can affect our color perception. Metamerism, am I right? So proving our designs in consistent lighting is critical. These Pantone swatch books are printed and proofed under industry standard D50 Lighting, which has a color temperature of approximately 5,000 Kelvin or 5,000 K and is meant to simulate natural daylight. And it just so happens that's exactly what our lighting is here on the Smart Press print floor. Glad we got that covered. Then when it comes to trying to create a color match like this, choosing a balanced paper color is more important than brightness. We're looking for a true white paper, which is as neutral white as possible. The Goldilocks paper, not too warm, not too cool, but just right. When comparing these different posters, uncoated is too dull. Natural is too warm. And it looks like our gloss paper will give us the most accurate color match, which makes sense since it's a coated Pantone swatch. The other coated stocks should look pretty good as well. Finally, let's chat about paper texture. This is the fun part. While there can be some more technical aspects to paper finish and color, paper texture is all about visual effects and tactile experience. Now there's so many texture papers out there, from smooth gloss papers to the subtle tooth of uncoated to specialty textures like linen and felt weave. So how do we even begin choosing? Well, two good ways to think about paper texture selections are subject and evocation. First, let's consider how the paper texture you choose correlates to the subject you're printing. Take a look at this photo print of a vintage car. It has a polished metal surface, like the chrome bumper and the sleek yellow fender covered in water droplets that shine with dewy highlights. But looking at this same photo and some of the textured stocks, it kind of loses a bit of clarity and magic in those smooth, liquidy textures. The paper texture becomes more of a distraction. So if you look at it in the gloss paper accentuates those shiny and polished surfaces. So consider using gloss for subject matter that has these kinds of qualities. So you'll want to avoid heavy textured papers on artwork that requires smooth gradients like sky, glass, and water, for example. But let's say you have artwork with heavy texture in it, like thick fabric and sand or fur, like this lion portrait. Lean into it. The textured stocks amplify the texture of the fur. I especially like how this one looks on the felt weave paper. The smooth stock looks nice too, but I think the texture paper gives this image a little extra impact and interest. Texture can also evoke certain feelings through touch alone. We can use specific textures to communicate desired feelings or unique attributes of our brand, business, or event with this tactile language. For example, this gala invitation was printed on a linen paper stock. Linen is a classic texture often used in premium stationery and certificates. It evokes a traditional elegance, perfect for upscale events like this one. Using this texture immediately implies formality and sophistication. Similarly, Native Sun, a natural foods market brand, uses texture to communicate their values through tactile experience. They chose a craft paper for their business cards, which implies attributes about their brand like eco-friendly, sustainable, and organic. The design immediately feels warm and inviting through their paper texture choice alone. And that's the power of paper. Choosing the right paper is all about finding the perfect balance between design intent, functionality, and tactile experience. So hopefully the next time you have to select paper for your print project, you'll have the knowledge and confidence you need. It's also always a good idea to get paper samples from your printer so you can see and feel the paper. Preferably the samples will show the print too, and not just the paper. Then you can see how images and color would look on each different paper stock. If you want to check out the different papers available here at SmartPress, order our free paper sample book at smartpress.com/samples. If this video helped you understand more about paper selection, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the SmartPress YouTube channel. We'll be diving into brochure design, booklet layout, and much more in future episodes. Don't miss it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on School of Print Design.